Right, now we'll try to create the little button for your container. So I'll start this one. We'll use an ellipse. So we'll start and we'll create a document, and we'll be using the part workbench and not the part design workbench. So we'll stay in the part workbench. It's just simpler. It is a new tool, but anyway, we'll create the profile of the button. So looking down on the button, it's an elliptical shape. So we'll use the sketch tool. The orientation chooser in the part workbench is a little bit different to what you're used to. So we'll just use the XY plane, which is the top-down view. And then it looks the same as it does in the part design workbench when you get into the sketcher, because you'll see it's automatically changed to the sketcher workbench. So what we'll do is we'll create an ellipse. I won't be putting dimensions on the ellipse, but you can adjust it to the size of the button. You could do it with arcs, you could do it with B-splines, but ellipse is potentially a little easier. You'll notice that I've got a little yellow highlight to show you where I've left-clicked, and it'll be a blue highlight if I right-click. So when I click on the center here, for the center of the ellipse, you'll see it goes yellow, just to show you where I'm clicking there. We'll go out and we'll put the first point on, so you'll see on the horizontal line, and then we'll do the other part of the ellipse on the vertical line. Okay, and we'll right click and get out of that tool. As you saw when I right clicked, it went blue. So this will be something that we'll create a body out of this ellipse, which we'll then cut from. So there are 3 degrees of freedom still. That's because I haven't given it dimensions. But when you give it dimensions, that'll change. So we'll close that. And now, as usual, we've got this sketch. So the sketch is selected. We'll use this tool here, which is the extrude tool in the part workbench. And we'll make it about 20 mil high. So you'll see here the length, we'll call it 20. And we'll make it symmetric. In the previous video I didn't see this symmetric. So we did it all in one direction and then had to move the loft and everything. But we'll click the symmetric here, 20 mil. Apply that, and there we have it. We have the ellipse has been extruded, as we would have normally done in the part design workbench. But the ability, when we're using the part workbench, we can have multiple objects, separate objects, where you can't do that in the part design. You have to build a body singularly, fully, no 2 parts can exist in the same model. So click OK. Right, so that gives us our shape of the button from the top, but what we want to do now is we want to give it the profile that you're looking for in the button. So not sure what the second extrude is. What's this? Close. What's this one here? Close. Don't know why we've got 2 extrudes. Okay. So we'll look at the front of it. We'll create that shape that we expect to see through the center of the button. So we'll go here now and we'll do the sketcher button again. We'll do it not in the XY plane, we'll do it in you can see the ZX plane, the global ZX plane. So, or the XZ plane. Go here, okay. And you can see that our original extrude is still centered on this, on the ZX axis. But what we'll want to do is we'll go up here again and we'll do a view section so that we're actually cutting it through the middle. Just align it again by clicking up there. So we'll do a couple of arcs, and I'll do arcs by 3 points. But first we'll actually choose some geometry. We'll take this left edge. There is no right edge because when you do the extrude, it sort of starts at this end, comes around, but what it does have is the top and the bottom. So we'll create, for our purposes, a little bit of geometry. So we can choose, so we'll create some construction geometry. So we've selected the top, the bottom and the left, and we've created some construction geometry on the right. So now create some arcs. So just somewhere out to the left here. As a starting point, we'll click on the center point as the other end, and then we'll just raise the arc around about what sort of shape we're after. We'll do the same again for this side. Click on the line, and then just like that. But what we're after, we want these two arcs to have equal radius, so we click on them both, make it equal. We also want this point and this point to be the same distance from the center, so click them in that order, left, right, and then the center. So we can strain them equally. So at least now, if we modify things, it all moves together. So you can see that. But what we want to do, and this is, in an ideal world, we'd put this dot, align it directly with the edge of that extrusion. But it turns out when we cut it later, it causes a problem just because of minor differences. When it's slicing, it can't slice the entire object. So we'll just give this, because this is going to be the slicing geometry, we'll make that stand outside by about 0.1 of a millimeter. So we'll go the distance from there to that point. Oh, that didn't work. We'll go from there to there, and we'll call it about 0.1 of a millimeter. So it does exist. And that'll be similar over here because we've made it equidistant. That'll be 0.1 of a millimeter also. Turns out I didn't need to select the top and the bottom and create the right hand geometry, but I did it just in case. Because in previous iterations I'd done prior to recording, I used it but did things slightly different. So that's created our basic shape through the center of the button. So we'll close that. I'm going to rename it down here. I'm going to call this, I guess, the spine. Just so we know what we're talking about when I describe it. So you can't see it now because the extrusion, well, you can see the very end of it here sticking out of the extrusion. So what I want to do now, if I just look at the top, I'll just hide this. We've got this line that we just created through the center. We want to now create a line around to loft from, through the spine, and then out to another side. So if we bring in this extrusion again, and if I need to create a new sketch. This time I will do it on the XY plane. So XY plane. But again, you can't actually see the center point and everything because we've got the extrusion in the way. So we'll just hide the extrusion just to show you. And you can see we've got the two arcs that we created before. I'll bring that extrude back in. But we'll now just do the set view section. so that we're not hiding it completely, so that you can see there. The problem with the view section is it removes the arc that we put up here, but that's okay. We've still got the end point of that arc, which is important to us, which is here. So I'll just go top down again. Right. I'll bring in some geometry, which is the outside of the extrusion. I'll bring in the geometry of there it is, of the arc that we drew previously. And just to make sure, don't know if we're going to use it, I'll bring in the external geometry of that point there. Right, so now the same as what we did when we're putting the arcs through the middle, we need to stay outside of this extrusion. So I will turn that extrusion off, so we're left with just viewing our external geometry. So now we could do an arc, create an arc of an ellipse, but that only creates a quarter of the arc, and then we'd have to do the other quarter. It's easier just to create the ellipse, and then we'll just trim it. So I'm going to create an ellipse by center again. So we'll use the center point here. Click on that. We'll then go outside to that point we picked here. So this is that 0.1 of a millimeter outside of the extrusion. So that's the first point. Then we'll just click to somewhere on this line. So we'll go here. There we go. And now we'll right click and get out of that. What we haven't done is constrained it to be some distance away from this. Turns out it seems to be difficult to dimension this. It doesn't want to work, so I'll get out of that. So what I'll do is I'll create a piece of geometry with the construction tool. So I'll click on that dot here, which defines the edge of the ellipse. So I'll click on that, and I'll just come on the line somewhere there. Now what I'll do is I've got this piece of geometry. I'll make that dot coincident with that line, which is the ellipse. This is the external geometry we brought in. So I'll make that coincident. Right. So now we know whatever dimension we give this is the distance between the existing ellipse and our new ellipse we're going to use. So we'll go and give that a dimension, and we'll do the same thing as previously, and we'll just call it 0.1 there. So now we have a fully constrained ellipse that is 0.1 millimeters larger than the extrusion all the way around. But what I want to do is I want to get rid of 1/2 of this ellipse, because what we want to do is loft from the ellipse through the spine to another ellipse. But I can't have it, this is a continuous ellipse at the moment, so I just want to go from the elliptical arc on this side through the spine to another elliptical arc, which just happens to be identical to what we got there. But get out of that. So in order to do that, I'm going to put a piece of construction geometry from here all the way through to this end here. Right. And now, because that construction geometry is in there, we can cut with this trim. So click on that, the trim edge, or you can just click on it because it's already selected. So trim the edge. So we click on this part and you see it disappears because it's cutting up to where that construction geometry is. But you see it only cuts as far as this next point. So we now need to cut this piece too. And what we're left with is just an elliptical arc that goes through 180 degrees. So we'll go back to task, we'll close that. Right, so now you can see, if we turn off the spine, you can see we're left with that arc. What I want to do, now that we're out of there, go to the Sketcher workbench, click on, well, we'll rename this just to make it easier. We'll go Start Loft, let's say. Right, so the Start Loft, we want to duplicate this, but we want to mirror it. So we'll go up to, now that we're in the Sketcher workbench, we can go to the Sketch toolbar. We can go Mirror the Sketch. And you'll see down here, we want to mirror it about the x-axis. So it's already selected, so we'll just do that. And there it is. All that work to delete it, now it's back. But that's because we need it to be here as a separate entity. So we'll just rename that to End Loft, just to make it easier. Okay, so now what we have is we've got, I'll just come bring that up into a nice view maybe. There, you can see we have a Start Loft, which is this one. We have the spine in the middle, and then we have the End Loft. So what we'll do is we'll go back into the Part workbench. And now that we're in the Part workbench, we can choose, here we've got this Loft tool. So Loft, that brings up a selection box, so we can then choose the order which we want to loft. So we want to go with the Start Loft. We'll select that, see it goes green. And now we'll move that over to the selected profiles by clicking this blue arrow, because that's now an option. So we Start Loft, then we want to go through the spine, so we'll select that. And then we want to go to the end of the loft, select that. Leave all these things down here unselected and click OK. And there we have it. We have a wobbly plate, but it is of 0 thickness, so it's not a solid body. If we have a look at the extrude, you can see the edge of it comes through the extrusion. So we'll now use that loft to cut this extrusion into 2 pieces. So in order to do that, we'll click on the Extrude first, make sure nothing was selected. Click on Extrude first, then Control, click on Loft, and we'll go up here to Part, and we'll go to Split, Slice Apart. Right, so now it's sliced it. If we hadn't come outside by that very small amount, this wouldn't have worked, because at some points along this, the loft, it would have been inside, potentially with a very minute amount inside this extrusion, and therefore would have failed. So now we have these 2 slices. We have a bottom slice and a top slice. But they're still not what we want. This has still got a flat top, this has got a flat bottom. We can hide one and show what it looks like. You know, it's wobbly now. That solid, it is a solid entity, so it's got the nice shape. But what we want to do is we'll make them both available. We'll select the bottom one. You can select the top one if you want, but the bottom one is fine. Right click on it over here and you'll see Transform. So select Transform. We'll leave it as translation increment of 1 millimeter. If you want to do it in different quantities, that's okay. If the button is only 0.5 mil thick, you might want to make this 0.5 mil. But let's assume the button is 2 millimeters thick at the edge. And we'll then, there's no way to, over here, move it. You have to do it with this widget in the middle. So we want to go up along the Z axis. So with your left button, you're going to click on this. As you can see, it's now highlighted yellow while my left button's still down. You're going to move it in the direction and the amount you want. So we're just going to go and move it 2 clicks. Just drag it a little bit. You'll see it snaps 1 millimeter and then 2 millimeters. Then let go. Right. So now what we've got is we've got the bottom. So we'll click OK on that. Slice 0 now overlaps with slice 1. What we want to do is we'll select both of them. Again, select slice 0, then with Control down, select slice 1, so they're both selected. Go to the part again. We'll do what's called a Boolean operation. We'll do an intersection. So what we're going to end up with, we're going to be left with only the part of both of these slices that is at the intersection. So we'll only get what is overlapping. So we'll click on that, thinks about it a bit, and there you go. The 2 millimeter overlap we did is all that is left. So there you have your button. What it is missing, of course, is the hinge, but it's not in a body, and we're still in the part workbench, and you'll want to use the part design workbench. So if I just go to tasks, there are no tasks active, right, so okay. So we now need to somehow import this into the part design workbench. So we'll go to the part design workbench here. We want to create a body, but we want to create a body with this in it. So if we go back to the model tab, we'll go and click on common. So we selected the bit we want to bring in. I mean, it doesn't work if you click on the exploded slice. You have to click on the common, which is the final feature. And then with that selected, then you create a part. And now that part has been brought in. It is linked to this original part. So if you made changes in this original, it will make changes in the body. But we can now hide the original by just, you can select it and spacebar, or you can click on the. It doesn't look any different over here because the base feature is still turned on. Now, but you can see I've now turned off the exploded slice. So now we're in the body. And now we can just edit it the same way you have been previously. So we can put a hinge on that. I'm going to assume the hinge is in the middle just for the purpose of this. We can do a sketch. And we'll do it in the XY plane. So let's draw a centered rectangle. I'm going to do the view section, just so we can pick the center. And we'll do something like this. I'm not dimensioning it again because I don't know what the dimensions are. And we'll close that. The trouble is it's in the middle of this. Is it? Yeah, there it is. You can see it partly underneath, partly in. So this is not going to work very well for doing extrusion. So what we'll want to do is we'll want to move this up. And I'll see if it works this time. The placement and the position. Now, in the Z direction, should, if you click here, it is not working. Okay. This happened previously. So what we'll do, I'm going to delete that sketch. I'm now going to create a datum plane on which to draw the sketch. So in part design, I'll go create a datum and I'll create a datum plane. So the datum plane automatically just comes in on another plane. It's asking you to select a reference. So I want to choose the plane it's on. So if we go with the objects XY plane as the first point, but I want to, so we can select that, but I want to come up in the Z direction. Oh, it's not, it's probably better if I select it here, and if we go into this reference here, if we go into the model, go into origin and unhide it. So there we've got the plane shown. So now what we can do in the datum plane, it's in the task still, we can come into, click on this so that it says selecting, and we can choose the XY plane. There it is. It's chosen the XY plane as the datum, but that's no good to us because it's exactly where it was before. So we need to move it up. So now that we've got it in here, it says it's a plane face. It happens to coincide with the XY plane now, but we can shift it up in the Z direction now by going into this Z direction, and we can use the scroll wheel, we can use this, or we can use the up and down arrows to move it. So I'm going to just move it up about, we know the thickness of the button, we made it 2 mil. So let's just make it about, make it 3 mil. No, I'll make it 2 mil because, where is it? 3 mil? Oh, I don't know, somewhere, make it 4 mil, there we go. Right, so now we've got the datum plane in there. We can turn off the original origin, selecting that. So now we've got this datum plane, which is above our button. So we can now draw a sketch on this datum plane. So let's select that sketch, the datum plane. We'll draw a sketch. As we'd done previously, we'll choose a centered rectangle. So we'll choose the center. Just do this and close. Now what we can do is we can, as we've done many times before, we can just pad that out. So we can pad it, but at the moment it's trying to pad it up, so it's not showing anything. So what we'll do is we'll pad reversed. You can see it now goes down. In actual fact, you probably don't even need to do reversed. If we go to face, up to a face, now we select that face, it will automatically go down. You'll notice it doesn't go through, it just stops when it hits the face. So now we've got the starting point of your hinge. So, okay. Now we can, say, choose the, I'm going to turn off the datum plane. Go over here, select it, spacebar. So I'm going to select the end face here. You don't have to do that. You could have selected the, just done a normal sketch and chosen the XZ plane, or you can choose that face and then extrude off. I'll go with the XZ plane for the moment. And I'll draw on there. I'll just go with the view section. I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to create it by center. There we go. That'll do. I'll put the center on, hold it a minute. I'll just choose some external geometry, which is this. I'll create that circle, center point on the line, start of the circle. So there's the radius. Close. I mean, I haven't given it a radius or anything. Right, so there we have another one. So now what we can do is we can pad it. You can pad it symmetrically to the plane. You can increase it until it gets to where you want. And there it is. However you want. You can see, because we haven't given it dimensions or anything, when I've made it symmetric to the plane and just given it a value, it's come over the edge of that. That's why if you had chosen this face to sketch on and then extruded it to the other face, it would have matched exactly. But anyway, so there's that item. I mean, similarly now, because we've got this datum plane, we can also datum plane. I can choose to draw your datum plane. There it is. We can also draw that other bit that you've got coming up. Don't know where it'll be. I'm going to assume it's got a hollow. I'm going to close that. I'm going to now select that sketch is selected, pad it down, and I'll go to face, and I'm going to just turn off the datum plane so I can select that face. Go back to the tasks, up to face, which I've done, but sketch normal, select the face, that one, pad 5, up to face, there it is. It did come through while I wasn't looking. Okay, now you can now then extend that up to whatever height you wanted. Maybe would have been wise to put your datum plane at the height and then just go down so you never to do anything else. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with extending that face up with the same dimensions. So anyway, there's your button in a nutshell. So hopefully you can follow through on that. Right.